Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu Whisky.de, dem Treffpunkt feiner Geister. Heute gibt es ein kleines englisches Interview. So, I'm sitting here with Brandon McCarron.
Yep.
You are with the Whisky creation team. 5 years you've been already with Glenmorangie, and you've already 14 years of experience within the Scotch business.
Yep.
Thank you very much for having us today.
Thank you.
And this is one of your creations. Can you tell us something about it?
Yeah, so this is it's actually one of my boss's creations. So my boss is Dr. Bill Lumsden, who is our master distiller. You know, he's the director of Whisky creation. And this is the 10th time that we've decided to release a private edition. We do a private edition once a year. It's always a different whisky. It's always a single batch. And we're just trying to be innovative, experimental, kind of push the boundaries of the Scotch Whisky Act. But more important than anything is to make really interesting, delicious whiskies. And the most recent one, just released right now, is Glenmorangie Allta.
So everybody has read about the yeast, the wild yeast. That means you had to produce that kind of stuff. You had to mature it. So the idea is pretty old. So
Yeah. So some of our private editions, some of our whiskies in general are wood finishes. Wood finishing being a technique that the Glenmorangie company mastered and pioneered. When you do a wood finish, what you tend to do is take quite a mature whiskey, so say like original, and transfer it into another cask, and maybe 2 or 3 years later you have a new product. But when you do something like this is sort of groundbreaking trials with the spirit character. Yeah, when you do that, you're looking at a much, much longer period, because you need to make the spirit at the distillery. Have to have the idea first, create the yeast, make the spirit, then mature it. So this is a very, very long sort of labour of love.
Is it comparable to the original with maturation, or how?
I would say it's absolutely comparable to the original. The only real difference between original and Allta is that original uses distiller's yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, just like every distillery uses. And with Allta, we found this very unique wild yeast that only really exists around the barley fields around our distillery, which is called Saccharomyces diamath. We mashed with Scottish barley, we fermented for the same length of time, we distilled in the same copper pot stills. So everything was kept as consistent as it could be to really just show what difference happens when you use a new type of yeast. Now, there's 2 differences. As well as the yeast, there's 2 other differences. Glenmorangie Original only uses first and second fill ex-bourbon casks, so it's quite oaky and quite, wood driven. We didn't want Allta to have too much of the wood flavours, because we really wanted to show off the difference of the yeast. So this uses second fill and refill barrels. The other difference is almost just to really show off the difference of the spirit, but also as a thank you to everyone for 10 years of private edition. It's a little higher in strength, so it's at 51.2% alcohol.
Yeah, definitely. So let's have a try.
Sure.
I'm really excited. I've already tried it, so I know what to expect.
Oh, good. Well, I suggest, will we start with original?
Yeah, let's start with the original.
It's always good to kind of, reawaken your taste buds.
So I introduced you as from the Whisky creation team.
Yes.
How can my viewers imagine how a whiskey is being created?
Well, it's lots and lots and lots of sampling,
Okay.
So there's I was going to hand you the first one. So we're looking at, first and foremost, the spirit that's coming out of both distilleries that I work on. So Glenmorangie spirit is sent down to our lab, and we'll set up and nose and make sure that it's elegant, fruity, floral. And if it isn't, for whatever reason, if it's not right, we'll help make adjustments at the distillery to bring the spirit back to being at the right character. A lot of my job is securing the right amounts of the right quality of barley and buying the right casks year on year to keep our supply. After that, between that spirit being 0 years old, because it's just off the still, to it being 10 years old and becoming original, we'll be sampling and checking and looking and thinking all the way through that 10-year period. So, and then of course we make many permanent expressions, and we also work on brand new whiskies as well. So it's kind of hard to, have a standard day. We're just always sampling, looking, thinking. And of course we have like meetings and some of the more dull work to do, but we're constantly trying to think of what can we do next? What's the new thing that we can make? But the most important whiskey we make is this one right here. This is Glenmorangie Original.
Yeah, I've just recently been to the distillery with I've met Andy, and
oh, nice.
It's a real pleasure, and I've had the pleasure of trying the mash and the fermented mash,
the wort and the wash,
and it's incredible how you find some of the flavors just right in there.
Yes, I would say those flavours that you're describing, that wort, that wash, about 40% of those flavours are what makes up this glass of whiskey. So
yeah. The thing is, I didn't get that much from the wort, but from the wash. The wash was there was just that distinct. There was that kind of fruitiness, a little bit of pineapple going on in there.
Well, you're absolutely right.
That was just, you just find it in the whiskey again.
You're absolutely right. So the wort, you won't really pick up the aromas, but two things that are really important about the wort. First of all, we mash very slowly. So when you mash slowly, you get very clear wort. So this crystal clear wort, that's important. Some distilleries will want wort that's quite cloudy to make a different character of whiskey, but we want ours really clear, really free of solids. And also, it's full of mineral-rich spring water. So it's our Tarlogie spring water.
Yeah, I've been there as well.
Yeah.
Tarlogie is a magical place.
It really is. It's magical to visit, and it's magical for making whiskey as well.
Yeah, I unfortunately couldn't see the
bubbles coming through.
The bubbles coming through. No, it was a day without the bubbles.
Was it raining or?
It was a bit raining. It was a bit drizzly.
Yeah, sometimes it's raining because the light just goes so dark you can't quite see it. But that mineral-rich water, once you add yeast to that sugary wort, the minerals mean that the yeast is really able to function really effectively. So there's this powerful, effervescent, active fermentation. And fermentation creates esters. So it creates acids, it creates alcohols, and when they combine, those are esters. White fruits, apples, pears, oranges, citrus fruits, oranges, lemon, stone fruits, tropical fruits, all of these flavours that you can pick up in this glass are created during fermentation. And you'll have also, after you saw the fermentation, you will have seen our giraffes, our tall copper pot stills. And they also have this really important part to play in making this whiskey. Because those stills are so tall, now they're tiny in volume, but really tall. Lots of copper contact, so no sulphur. There's no sulphur, there's no heavy notes. It sort of strips out these masking flavours. So by stripping them out, it leaves behind oranges, lemons, leaves behind these tropical fruits that you're looking for in the spirit. So you end up with this really elegant, fruity and floral. We haven't spoke much about these sort of floral perfumed notes, but it leaves behind this fruity and floral spirit, which is perfect for maturing in ex-bourbon casks. So that is why Glenmorangie Original is matured for 10 years in ex-bourbon casks. And just to make it even more special, we only use the cask twice. So it's first fill and second fill casks only that go into making Glenmorangie Original.
Yeah, it's just a really fine spirit that you have there with the 10-year-old.
Yeah, sorry. It's got great texture. It's very creamy, very buttery. It's got lots of vanilla, caramel, honey, these classic American white oak characteristics.
I find it amazing how you can mix the bourbon character very lightly together with this fruitiness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that thing when you think of a Highland, like a beginner thinks of the Highland whiskey always rough and tough, but you can even, if you have a Glenmorangie, it's up in the north at the shore, and it just shows, oh yeah, you can make a fine spirit there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I love is meeting people who drink Glenmorangie and they say it's the first single malt that they really, got into. So it's a great place to start. But what I also love is people who have been drinking it for 20 or 30 years and they keep coming back because there's so many different layers and textures and flavours, so many different things to experience. And I'm actually going to just put some water in mine. I don't know, do you want some?
Oh, yeah, some.
Yeah. So a little bit of water in this and it changes completely. Just this tiny amount of water. And you find it gets sweeter, more sugary, like white sugar's been added, it feels like. The vanilla becomes thicker, might even be like vanilla ice cream. And the lemons are no longer acidic and sharp. It's now getting like lemonade.
Now it really feels creamy.
Yeah.
You had a good amount of creaminess before, but now it really feels creamy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just very smooth, very silky. So yeah, there's all these different parts that play to make all of these flavours. It's famous for its complexity. Just this huge range of flavours. So the mineral rich water, careful mashing, long fermentation, slow distillation, only using the cask twice. All of these things are done for a reason, and it's to create all the flavours that are in this glass.
I like it. So how satisfied are you with the new yeast? I mean, for me, I've tried it, and it is definitely something different.
Yes.
Did any questions arise of, should we change something?
With this whiskey?
No, I mean with your standard range.
Oh, right. Sorry, I was going to say, how dare you? No, so I think quite a few people are wondering now, we've tried this new yeast, it's our yeast, no one else can use it. Are we going to change everything to it? And no, we're not. This whiskey is just perfection to us. We love Glenmorangie Original, and you can only make that by using the distiller's yeast that we use right now.
Yeah, the original recipe.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah, with the Cerevisiae yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae. This is exciting and different and special. So we're not going to take this and just transfer it back to all of our other products, but it opens up a whole new chapter.
Stay as a single bottling, or are you thinking about, like, I don't know, half of it, or I don't know?
So this will stay as a single bottle.
A single bottling.
So the Glenmorangie Allta will be that's it. But that doesn't mean we won't do other experiments, with the diamath yeast. So we might do some that mature for longer or shorter. We might use some different woods. But like I say, it's completely opened up an entire new chapter for experimentation. Looking at yeasts, fermentations, creating different distillery characters.
So when you set up the thing is, was that like the only yeast? Did you try different strains, or?
Yeah, during the project, it was kind of inspired by the writings of Michael Jackson in his Whiskey Compendium. And in his whiskey book, he said that Glenmorangie had its own unique yeast strain. Now, it didn't. We think it was like a misinterpretation or a misunderstanding, but it sparked this kind of creative inspiration in my boss's head. So Dr. Bill decided, let's find a yeast, let's find something special. So he went out into the fields around about Glenmorangie with some yeast specialists from a company called Lallemand, and they started just sampling and taking stuff off the ears of barley in the fields around the distillery.
So how can you imagine that? Is that just you go up with a spatula and
pretty much
petri dish?
Yeah,
and then...
pretty much petri dishes, and then it's over to the yeast specialists. So we let them analyse how much was in there, and they got it down to like 4 yeast strains that they thought had potential, and then they quickly moved that down, and got to like just this one yeast that they really, really liked, which ended up being the yeast that over time they grew it, they put it under tests, put it under stress, and then over time they went, this is now ready for like an on-site trial, an on-site experiment. And that on-site experiment, a long time ago, has eventually emerged as Glenmorangie Allta.
Okay, yeah. Let's try it.
Sounds good.
Yeah, the thing is with the wild yeast, I think we've heard some news from like the wine industry where they do quite a lot with the wild yeast and that kind of stuff, and it has very varying degrees of successfulness.
Yes.
I think, but you didn't. It is a wild yeast, but you cultivated it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It wasn't like a lambic fermentation where you just open up and just allow things to happen naturally, and that would be a mixture of different yeasts. This was identifying one yeast out in the wild, but then using only that and actively pitching it into the fermentation.
But I still imagine that your normal yeast is pretty much stronger. I think the yield and duration and that kind of stuff is probably gonna be.
The yield dropped by about 15%.
15%,
so
okay.
Quite a lot. 15 in some of the batches, 20 in others. So the yield dropped way down. The flavour profile changed quite noticeably. Really surprised me how different the new make spirits were. But yeah, we have an advantage in that our fermentation at Glenmorangie is in stainless steel vats. So because it's in stainless steel, before we started this trial, we could clean the vats completely. So there was no Saccharomyces cerevisiae left behind. And so it was just a pure inoculation with wild yeast, with this Saccharomyces diamath.
So did you keep some of the yeast?
Yeah. We have quite a lot on little slides, which you can very quickly, they're frozen. And then you can grow them up.
Okay, when they're frozen, they don't mutate, right?
No, don't change at all. Just go completely to sleep, basically.
Okay.
But yeah, so Allta. Cheers. Sláinte.
Slash it.
Allta, of course, means wild. So it's just a recognition of this wild yeast. And so, straight away you can tell things have changed. So it's still mineral-rich water. It's still distilled in the tallest copper pot stills. It's still matured in ex-bourbon casks.
It's definitely sure. You can feel that it's a...
But the yeast has changed.
It's mild, but it's a lot different. The thing is, it's always hard to tell what is different because you do have a lot less bourbon influence.
I find it very...
Well, I think I need more water because this is
it's quite high.
With the strength, this is a bit of a strange comparison.
At the full strength, what I like about it, it's rare that Glenmorangie at full strength is something I like, but this one I like the fact that it's just quite precise. The flavours are very bright, very clear. There's something like cereal, so like ripening barley in a field. Chewy biscuits almost. There's like a grassy herbalness.
Yeah, for me it's a bit I don't want to say fresher, but it's less in these mango and
yes,
it's a bit less sweet than the other one, but you still find a lot of that malt and what you said, cereal kind
notes,
of stuff.
Absolutely. I would say the original is more fruity, sweet, the tropical.
Definitely.
This is more floral and herbal. So it has that dried grass outside.
Yeah.
Hay,
bit more
barley.
wild.
Yeah.
But not rough wild, but as in...
Oh no, it's wild in terms of Glenmorangie. Yeah, wild in terms of Glenmorangie, which is always going to be quite rounded and fresh. Starting to get like, if you add water again, so I know you've added water once, but see if you put water in a second time, you will start to bring out, you're going to encourage out some of the sweetness. So you'll see the whiskey gets a little oilier in the glass, and that's because the fatty acids and the oils that were soluble at 51.2 are now coming out of solution. So it's like breaking open the whiskey. Yeah, so it's still not as strong as it is an original, but you should start finding some, I don't know, dehydrated apricots or orange skins, maybe even caramelized lemons. And I'm now starting to get this brilliant mintiness as well. I love that minty flavour that comes through.
Now that you say it, definitely that's what I found with the freshness.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a bit more fresh and has that mint, but it's a mild mint.
It's almost
not
like
the peppermint, but the
no.
It's what do you call these?
It's like the little mint candies. Little mint candies, glazier mints, we call them. Fox's glazier mint. So it's just quite light, quite fresh. And again, this word precise. I keep finding these flavours they're quite sharp and they're quite obvious. They're quite beautiful as well.
So this was the 10th edition. We can expect more in the future. The private collection is going to stay?
It's a good question. So we're always working 5 years in advance, minimum. So we have many, many other exciting projects
it's going to continue.
that we think are going to be great. But there is a question to be answered of, should we stop at 10? I personally, I hope it keeps going, because it's one of the most exciting projects of our year, if not the most exciting project of our year. Myself, Gillian, and Bill, so we were all in the Whisky Creation team together, and we were all down in London last week doing the global launch, and it's just such an exciting thing, and I get to come to countries and talk about. So I hope it keeps going, but
yeah, that's the thing with whiskey for me is I like the whiskey because you have so much diversity and so much different things, even though you have so much tradition. So it's, for me, whiskey is the perfect match between something new and tradition.
Yeah.
And it's really, really nice how you can say, oh, I'm just tweaking that little thing.
Yeah, just change one thing.
And then you have, in the output, you have something else that totally changed. And it's amazing how can you could probably, with that yeast, you could do so much variations.
Well, that's the thing. So we're famous for innovation, We created, we pioneered, we started the whole wood finishing experiment that's now a key part of making Scotch whisky. Even in the 1800s, we were one of the first distilleries to install indirect heating, so steam heating of stills.
Ah, okay.
These days, the last 10 years, we've really proved how innovative we can be with all of our spirits. And also this now, with this spirit innovation, with taking yeast and creating something different, it's just opened up this entire chapter of ideas and things that we can do. So it's an exciting time. Yeah.
So thank you very much for having that insight into creating whiskey and a bit of a background behind what comes into one of these bottles. Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Sanjiva.
And thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.